disgusting thing. Defiled is what you are, damned curse.
In despite of view, art pleased to dote. Shall I compare thee?
Hey gang, I'm JP and welcome back to Egotastic FunTime! In Stardust City Rag, Jean-Luc Picard and his merry band of outsiders on the La Sirena finally track down Bruce Maddox in the Space Vegas world of Freecloud, which is a hotbed for criminal enterprise, seedy vices, and where an old friend of Seven's is looking to make a dangerous trade for Maddox's life. Raffi also finds what she's looking for on Freecloud, but I don't really care so much about that right now. The shocking conclusion of this episode supports my theory about the nature of the Federation's ban on synths, and it leads me to believe that we haven't met any actual villains in this series yet. More on that in a minute. We finally get caught up with Bruce Maddox, who we originally met in the TNG episode The Measure of a Man, played then by television actor Brian Brophy. In this episode, the role of Bruce has been recast by the very talented John Ailes, who's portraying a conspiracy-obsessed, broken man whose existence went to pieces when his entire life's work became illegal when the Federation banned all synths after the attack on Mars, which killed over 90,000 Federation citizens. Bruce's life is very different than when we first met him over 30 years ago, where he was just a dick in a courtroom setting, trying to commandeer Data's rights as an individual. I'm not even sure if production reached out to Brian Brophy to reprise the role, or perhaps Brian wasn't interested because of his current work as a director at Caltech Theater, or what. One reason that makes sense to me after considering what Bruce Maddox went through in this episode, and then having gone back to look at Brian Brophy's previous roles throughout the years back when he used to act, is that it's very likely that Brian Brophy might not have had the acting chops to pull off this version of Bruce Maddox, and they needed a seasoned and currently active actor to take on the role like John Ailes did. Though if Brian did have the chops to play this role, it would have been really nice to see him, but John did a great job. In Stardust City Rag, we find out that Bruce Maddox and Dr. Girardi were once in a relationship. They used to snack on each other's cookies, you guys. Why did Agnes kill Bruce? I mean, here's what I'm sure of, okay, you guys, that Agnes is a good guy. She has to be a good guy. She didn't want to kill anyone, let alone Bruce. I understand now why she was having that Tilly-level panic attack earlier in the episode by the transporter bay when the EMH showed up and wanted to give her a sedative, because she knew what she was going to have to try and do if they brought Maddox back with them. Agnes says in the episode that she wished Bruce knew what they showed her. Then he'd understand that she wished she didn't know what she knew. Now, I went back to the episode where Commodore O met Agnes in the park, you know, when she was wearing sunglasses for some reason. I don't know why I didn't catch this before, but O began to mind meld with Agnes right before the scene cut away. That must be when all the information about the truth behind the synth attack and the ban and the rescue armada were given to her. That's when the truth that the Tal Shiar and probably certain members of the Federation know or think they know was passed on to her, and that's why whatever it is she knows caused her to side with the Tal Shiar and take out Maddox after he revealed where Soji is and why the sisters were created. My theory is that the Tal Shiar and the Federation aren't bad guys at all. They're just working with a knowledge that can't be revealed to the public, but they have to act on it in secrecy and without concern for certain lives in order to protect even more lives. To put it simply, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This series is going to end up being the ultimate exercise in that philosophy, I think. That being said, I can't have a member of our ragtag team killing a good guy like Bruce Maddox without a just cause. It's up to the writers of the show now to convince me that what Agnes did was the right decision. If they fail to do that, that means Agnes is a bad guy, and I'm not okay with that. Thanks to Bruce, in this episode, Jean-Luc finally finds out exactly where Daj's sister is and why they were created in the first place. Bruce revealing that Daj was sent to Earth to infiltrate the Datestrom Institute, and Soji was sent to the artifact to infiltrate the Borg cube controlled by the Romulans. Bruce is sure that the ban has to do with the Tal Shiar, and he thinks the Federation is also involved. The sisters were sent to figure out the truth behind that conspiracy. The Tal Shiar accidentally killed Daj in episode 1 before they can learn the whereabouts of other synths like her, and they plan on doing the same with Soji Soji. I don't think there are any more synths like Soji around, but they don't know that yet, and it's probably keeping Soji alive right now. I also feel that once Picard learns whatever it is the Tal Shiar think they know, that he might also side with them, and will then be introduced to the real villain of this story, perhaps next season. I'm also guessing that the real villain is the evil Control AI from season 2 of Discovery. I don't mind the connection to the Discovery villain as long as the writers on this show do it better than the writers on Discovery did. Despite all the heavy and complex ideas being showcased in this episode, especially with Seven's struggle to try and maintain some semblance of her humanity while dealing with more loss and betrayal than anyone should be expected to remain sane through, this is actually a fun episode. The series on a whole has a lot of levity and humor in it. This episode was meant to be the fun one. The goofy facer outfits the crew wore while on Freecloud very much reminded me of classic TNG moments, like the crew of the Enterprise running around in tights through Sherwood Forest, or Data masquerading as Sherlock Holmes, or Worf strutting around in his Wild West garb in the episode Fistful of Datas. Also, side note, during production of The Next Generation back in the day, Patrick Stewart would often do an overly French version of Picard behind the scenes to make the cast laugh. I mean, it's nice that Patrick Stewart got to put that old gag up on screen for us to see for the first time. I was taken aback a little bit when Jean-Luc first brought out the French accent in his study when they were trying to figure out the heist and he was being snarky with Raffi. I mean, it was a little too much too soon, but I loved what he did with the character when down on Freecloud. It totally worked and it was a lot of fun. He was overselling it, of course, but Raffi said that facers are supposed to act outlandishly. Personally, I would have written it to have had Picard be very reluctant to play the role when they were in the study, but then have him jump 100% into it when confronted with the situation they were in when they finally meet up with Bjayzl on Freecloud. That would have been funnier to me. I love watching Rios in the club trying to fit in and only barely pulling it off with his awkward gyrating to the music. The introduction of Mr. Vup, the reptiloid with a nose for bullshit, was a great world-building moment as well. Mr. Vup is a new alien race in the Star Trek universe, which I'm glad they decided to go with something new instead of pulling out some previous part of the canon for us to drool over or complain about. As Trek fans, we want to keep moving forward and adding to the universe as opposed to reinventing or rehashing old stuff in new and different ways. To me, that's one of the reasons Discovery didn't do so well, besides the writing and a bunch of other stuff. It was an intrusion instead of an addition. If you want to make a new Star Trek, then make a new Star Trek. Don't remake the old Star Trek. The Picard series is catching up to these characters that have had a lifetime of new experiences since we last saw them, and that, to me, makes it exciting. In Stardust City Rag, Picard and Seven of Nine meet for the first time, which is a pretty epic moment. They're only aware of each other's reputation. Seven has spent the last 14 years taking it upon herself to police a part of the galaxy that the Federation no longer has much of a presence in. Her and the Fenris Rangers are trying to keep order in the region, and they're outmanned and outgunned and unable to make any true change, but Seven says it would be worse to stop trying. I always imagined Seven would take up some cause after Voyager that allowed her to do right, but also allow her to keep the rest of humanity at arm's length, because she never felt comfortable completely embracing her own humanity. Her experience with the Borg will always be a struggle for her. The thousands upon thousands of lives she took while being part of the collective will always make her feel like she doesn't completely deserve to belong. In the opening flashback scene 13 years ago, Icheb was taken and tortured by Bjayzl so she could sell his Delta Quadrant Borg implants to the highest bidder. We see Icheb being tortured in a pretty graphic scene, I must say, with his cybernetic Borg eyeball being extracted. You can see all the Borg wires and tech attached to his synthetic eyeball, and it's definitely hard to watch when it's removed. To be honest, I've never really liked it when Star Trek gets a little too graphic like that, like the time when that guy's skin was blown off in that TNG episode Conspiracy, or the Admiral who had his face stretched off in Insurrection. Unlike in last week's episode, where the beheading of that Romulan guy was done with clever shots and cinematic cuts where we actually never see any gore at all, Jonathan Frakes decided in this episode to give us a first-hand account of what was being done to Icheb. I'm guessing it was an artistic choice so that we as the audience can relate to Seven's loss and outrage, so that we can understand her decision to succumb to the temptation of revenge at the end of the episode. And let me just be honest here, I'm glad Seven took out all those really bad guys so that all the death and destruction and injustice they get away with on a daily basis are stopped for good. They all got what they deserved, and I'm happy they're dead. I'm just not happy with her motivations for going after Bjayzl. She will not find her desire for vengeance to have been squashed, you guys. Her pain that she feels for the loss of Icheb will not be lessened. I'm hoping that we get another chance to catch up with Seven later in the series to see what she learned from her actions.
JP, you stupid bastard! 7 of 9 would never kill bad guys out of revenge.
She wouldn't? How do you know?
Because, idiot, I watched Voyager. I know 7 of 9.
I mean, I only knew Seven for the 4 years she was on Voyager. That was 20 years ago. She's lived a life spanning 5 times that length by now. I mean, I had a best friend through all 4 years of high school that I haven't seen since graduation. I mean, if I ran into him 2 decades later, I can't say I'd feel comfortable assuming how he'd react to any situation at all. I mean, it would be nice if he never had any life experiences in the last 20 years, thus inhibiting him from growing as an individual just to appease my limited opinion of who I think he should be, but it would be very unrealistic.
Screw you and your logical mind, JP.
No, screw you, angry nerd troll!
Jeez, well, Doctor Who sucks.
Maybe it does. I wouldn't know. I haven't seen the latest season.
You haven't seen it. You should watch it.
But I thought you said it sucks.
Damn it, JP.
Seven committing a mercy kill for Icheb to save him from dying a slow and extremely painful death, which he definitely would have done, really showed me just how much Seven cared for him, thus making me care for him. Unlike that time Picard killed that ensign in First Contact who was begging for help, Jean-Luc chose to shoot the ensign instead of the Borg that had him in his custody. It only counts as a mercy kill if there's no other choice, and if they're not blatantly asking you to help them live. It sucks that Icheb had to die in order to give Seven an even stronger backstory for the audience to latch onto, but also, I'm not too fussed about it. I still haven't gotten over the writers of TNG killing off Tasha Yar in that horrible and pointless way that they did. I guess this stuff happens in Star Trek sometimes. It was cool to finally find out why Raffi wanted to join Picard's mission, because she wanted to go to Freecloud to reconnect with her son. She's even introduced to her son's baby mama and wife-to-be, who is full TNG-era Romulan. Raffi was very happy to meet the mother of her grandchild, and obviously desperate to be part of their lives. Wait a minute. I thought Raffi was supposed to be a xenophobe, because everybody in this show is supposed to be a xenophobe, because it's fun to use new words that we learn on the internet. But she obviously had no problems with her son knocking boots with a damn dirty bowl haircut wearing Romulan whore. Damn you, internet! Why don't I feel the way you told me I would feel? Anyway, I like Raffi, but I really don't have much to say about her story right now. Next. Elnor has been a nice surprise. He's a bit of comic relief to the crew dynamic. He's more relatable than I thought he was going to be, and he's more likable than I thought he was going to be. Elnor is a fish out of water. He's very young and naive, but he's also deadly when it comes to combat. He's the Wesley Crusher of the ship. Elnor knows nothing about the real world. His life experience doesn't stretch anywhere outside the village he was raised in. Everything is new to him, and he's excited by it. He wants to fit in, but doesn't know how. He was raised to tell the truth in absolutely every situation, even when it hurts people, so he had no idea how to lie about his identity when on Freecloud. It's just not in his wheelhouse, you guys. So the rest of the team tells him to be himself, but please don't talk, because you're gonna blow our cover. Elnor more than holds his own, though, when the facade of their visit to Stardust City is revealed and he takes up some phasers and he's ready to go at it. Loved that when the La Sirena synced up with Freecloud that everyone got a personalized holographic ad sent to them, and that Elnor was disappointed he didn't get one. He wants to experience everything he can while on this mission. Everything is new to him, which to all of the adults in the room can be a bit annoying. At the end of the episode, when they get Maddox back to the ship, Rios walks over to the transporter controls and leaves some device on it that Seven eventually walks up to and sneakily puts into her pocket. What was that device? Why did Rios leave it there? Is it a mobile emitter? Because it turns out that Captain Rios is actually a hologram? If Rios was nothing more than light and force fields, the beta blockers that Raffi gave him wouldn't have worked, and Mr. Vup would have been able to smell that he wasn't a real person. Egotastic FunTime fan Gold Robin on Twitter pointed me in the right direction to find out what that device was. Going through the episode, it turns out that the device Rios left on the transporter panel was just the pattern enhancer the crew used to give them access to beam into the bar on Freecloud. It was just their key into the club. Seven even referred to it right before they beam back to the ship. Thanks to this episode, Jean-Luc finally knows where he has to go to find and save Soji, that there's a conspiracy involving the Tal Shiar and possibly the Federation where the truth must be uncovered. Agnes killed Bruce Maddox, and the ship's EMH could expose her, but if anyone knows how to cover her tracks when it comes to AI programming, it's Agnes. How long before Jean-Luc finds out what Agnes did? Star Trek Picard isn't pretending to be a traditional Trek adventure like Discovery was trying to do. Are you enjoying this personal story of a man we used to know 20 years ago as he boldly goes through the biggest mystery of his life? You can let me know what you think by joining the conversation below. I'll see you very soon, and as always, I hope all your times are egotastic fun times. Love you, bye-bye!